Another tragic event. This one actually unfolded, and now we're just hearing about it, but it unfolded days prior to Lisa Marie Presley's death, and that is the death of Tyre Nicols in Memphis, Tennessee. And if you're not making that correlation, you should be. It's really hard to sit here and comprehend and digest these things that are going on, even though it's not touching us where we're standing, some of us lucky enough to be in a home. But the truth of everything that's going on is almost like the past is regurgitating itself over and over again. In all these false beliefs that we were led to believe about the United States is truly fabricated lies, where there's actually higher authority that can step down and put a crunch on the lower forms of authority and break them right down to street level and make them cry, whimper, and whine all their way home. Like, we have no higher authority here that can just step in and take control over this stuff. And you can't tell me that in history somewhere there it wasn't set up like that, because it was set up like that. It was set up originally after the taking of the land. It was set up, this was all federal jurisdictional land. And then people broke off into segments because the amount of management that it took for the federal government with the funding that it had in its hands, the smaller portions, the minute portions, the lower, the tedious task of administration got handed down at local levels, and that's how they broke this country up into states. Well, they're focusing on higher priorities, the safety and security of the land, the minute management of things that were still priority, but they didn't have, they had to remain focused on what they were watching, so to speak. So when programs like food stamps came about, they said, hey, we know this is our program and everything, but we're going to have the states administer this for us because, we're concerned that there's something else going on over here that needs our attention. So all this land, all of it, was once held under federal jurisdiction. There was no wonder some hamlet in the middle of fucking nowhere. Well, they got jurisdiction. Well, we can't supersede their jurisdiction and their ordinances based on state law. Because, well, we got to work it through the system. No, it's none of that fucking shit. This is how it all gets started, okay? It all gets started from first acquiring land that was never yours to begin with. That's number one. And how you acquired it, well, Isn't that the same footing that you're using today with the average day people? Sure the fuck is. Oh, well, you're going to take the archaic and ancient ways of the blood that was once here on this land, and you're going to reformulate it somehow into a more civilized world. That's how it all began. It was all under federal. And then as these tasks came about, counting people, births and deaths, well, we can pass that down to the states, and that will give them something to do. And we'll make that their responsibility. Well, we focus on, you know, somebody trying to cross into the border somewhere and planting A-bombs or something in our country. Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But where it all went to the wayside, quick, fast, and in a hurry, is that these states that were broken up into sections to handle the federal administration of the tedious task, and they were paid to do so, decided all on their own to create their own laws. And so they kind of, in a nutshell, overthrew the federal government. And that's how these states evolved. And so the authority, as it was once set up, where the federal government had the overruling upper hand, and based on the climax that occurred, you know, like if you really unfold fraud, the impact of allowing fraud to grow rapidly without anybody catching it and finding the trigger that caused the fraud to roll forward to begin with, well, it just keeps, it's like black mold. It just fucking keeps growing, okay? And so here we are, once again, with a tragedy. This young person with a child of his own should never have died. His life should not have ended on a traffic stop. Is it a reason to kill somebody? Was it? Do you know the valid reasons to kill or to not be killed here in the United States? Like the rationale, the common sense of these people that are getting paid large chunks of everybody's earnings in all the footprints that we make along the way. None of it makes sense. Oh, well, we tried to push these police reforms through Congress, and we had too many nays versus too many says. Are you fucking for real? And so everybody, once again, is protesting, placing demands on the table for reform. But the details of the reform, nobody's talking about, you know, the drivers that are causing these lunatic cops to do shit like this. Are you on drugs? Drugs and alcohol, they need to be tested. All these fucking government employees, immediately, I don't care what your tenure is, you need to go get screened. And every 6 months, you need to get screened again. If it ain't clean, you lose your fucking job with no fucking pension. Either clean up your fucking act or get the fuck out of the way. I have never I could have never imagined when I was growing up, as hard as I grew up, we did not grow up in some wealthy surroundings. It was very tough the way I grew up. I could, I never imagined, not in my wildest fucking dreams, that this would be the future of the world. It just blows my fucking mind. And what really, really blows my fucking mind is you still have those dumb asses out there tooting the cops' horns. Oh, back the blue, back the blue. Fuck the blue. Seriously. If they can't get it fucking straight what their true positions are here, it's to keep the peace. They're peacekeepers, first and foremost. They're not hedgemen. They're not cult leaders. You know, they're not the Ku Klux Klan. They're not getting paid to be the Ku Klux Klan. So all these people out there that are with their fabricated, oh, it's got to be smoke and mirrors. This can't be real. This would never happen, not in the United States. It's got to be Hollywood. Okay, once it's delivered up on your front door, because you're living in some secluded little la la land, or you are afraid to drive, within a 50-mile radius of where you are living, and you actually start tuning in to what's really going on, you just might be shocked. Kids are getting killed in school. A 6-year-old is going to get hung up on attempted murder charges of a teacher. Are you fucking for real? So they can lay down the blueprints, starting with birth, that all children are natural born killers. And then they can just, be like the Romans and start killing children off based by what race, color of hair, eyes. It's just too much. And there's got to be somebody out there. I mean, China's got a foothold in the United States bigger than most people even fucking know. You don't believe me? You and anybody else that lives in your household, I want you to take this assignment. Each person just randomly go pick up 10 items in your house. Anywhere. Off the walls, on the countertops, in the laundry basket, and bring them to the kitchen table. And then separate it all out based on made in. You're going to find the pile that says made in China, that's the biggest pile. And here's the foothold with China. Because the United States is so dependent on those products made by the Chinese government, the country of China. At any point in time, China can just say, you know something? Those fucking Fruit Loops over there in the United States need to be taught the most valuable lesson of all. We're going to withhold imports, so we're not going to create any exports going into the United States for, let's say, 3 months. Let's see how they respond to that. All your little gadgets that you find in all these stores and stuff. Oh, you gotta have that, gotta have this, gotta have that. If they held any of those products from coming in here, including the products needed to repair your cars, you'd be fucked. And it would happen fast. That's the big scope of the reality. That these local government lunatics can't get into their heads when they're supervising and allowing cops to run rampant. Not only cops, but all government employees. They get to do whatever the fuck they want. They think they're so fucking better and superior than the rest of us. They put their pants on the same way. They put their clothes on the same way. You're just fucking people. Your dollar ain't worth shit. But if you were really serious about making a better tomorrow for the people that already live here and the future generations, you would have done something a long time ago, but you didn't. And so here we all stand here today. And it's only a matter of time between now and when it happens, because it's all going to be delivered up into every neighborhood because they can't control things. They can't control anything. But they still allow immigrations to come through, don't they? You can't control the numbers that are already here before you. You don't have a solid structure in place, historically or otherwise. Regardless of all the tax dollars that have been dumped in your direction, you have yet to find a solid solution to any problem here. But you get yourself involved elsewhere. Your homework, your reporting, your analysis, they're so filled with errors. There's no quality check in anything that you do. I'm talking to you employees of the government at all levels. We're not your goddamn motherfucking slaves. You created the national debt because of your spending, and the spending was not spent on us for the betterment of the rest of us. You bettered yourself using tax dollars that have not yet been collected, that you believe can be collected in the future based on whipping the chains. We're not your goddamn motherfucking slaves. The only way it's going to end? War. I've been saying this all along. These fucking people need to be taught the most valuable lesson of all. You are touchable. You're not the untouchables. Your whole concept and false belief that, oh, well, we're standing on Indian country and, well, we're protected because we have the smallest population of Indians in the world. They're almost extinct. And just because of that, well, we're protected. Wrong. You're not protected. You're not protected by your own government, your own employees. You're not protected by currency. You're not protected by your borders. And you're certainly not protected by blood. I don't know where it's all going to end, but it's like, I'm so sick of America. And then the protocol obviously is lower your flag. Lower that goddamn motherfucking flag. Stop putting it up there on the flagpole because we're not in a good position, financially or otherwise. We're under duress, actually. Just fucking lower it, package that bitch up for another day, if that day ever comes. It's so disgusting. It's so sad to listen to Tyre Nicols' mother. And he was that close to his mother, distance-wise, that day when they did that to him. And he was screaming for his mother. That's awful what happened to him. But it can happen to anybody. It's been happening to people. It's only a matter of time before it actually becomes closer and starts hitting home with more and more people because it's out of control. There's nothing left that we can do. It's sad. It really is. They let it go way too far.